There are a lot of other ways that a firm can intervene in the market besides just taxes, price controls, or quantity controls. All of that stuff takes the sort of structure of the market as given, but you can also intervene to change the structure of the market. And by that I mean change the competitive makeup or the number of firms in the market. So a very famous way that governments intervene to try to correct market failures is via antitrust. All right, which is trying to create competition and reduce market power. This could be by preventing mergers that would result in market power. It could be by declaring certain types of companies too large and sort of already in violation, in which case they need to split up and start competing with each other. In general, the goal is to try and move us from something where there's market power to something where there's less. So in our models, we know, for example, that monopolies, let's do a perfect competition, or let's do constant marginal costs here. They're going to have deadweight loss, like so. This is the monopoly price. If we could break this monopoly up into 1,000 little pieces and have them all compete, we could perhaps get all the way to the perfect competition outcome, where price equals marginal cost, and that's where welfare is maximized. This would also work if we could get the two firms to, like, if we could break it into two and have them compete with Bertrand-style competition. That would also result in price equal to marginal cost and maximize welfare. There'd be no deadweight loss. Somewhere in the middle is the Cournot outcome, where if we could break this firm into two pieces or multiple pieces, and if they compete via Cournot, we showed that the price that they're going to result at is going to be lower than the monopoly price. So this is a different way to reduce prices, benefit consumers, without trying to intervene with a price control, and that requires a lot of information, remember, about what's the real cost and what's the actual demand. Antitrust is simpler in that sense that you don't need all that information. You can basically just let competition and the firms sort of work out amongst themselves and find lower prices for the consumers. So that works really well in situations that are sort of where firms have kind of classic cost structures. But there can be cases where antitrust is also problematic and not actually a good idea either. That can occur when monopolies exhibit certain kinds of features that we didn't talk too much about this, but there are such things called natural monopolies, and they have falling average cost and often falling marginal cost. Okay, so let's take a quick look at why this is a complication. We just drew one with constant marginal cost, but what if we had falling marginal cost? So here we've got marginal cost like this. And let's give ourselves the same demand. Okay. And let's do marginal revenue equal marginal cost here. So we've got marginal cost equal to marginal revenue. We find the price here. All right. Notice that just because the marginal cost is sloping down, we've got falling marginal cost. That doesn't mean I can't use the exact same monopoly strategy as before. Okay. Now, let's add one more kind of unusual piece of information, or I don't know, not unusual, but just one other piece of information. Let's assume that average cost for this monopolist is like this. That's the average cost. Okay. At this point, the firm's price is above its average cost. All right, so this is a firm. Why is the average cost like this? Because it has some fixed cost, and then as it makes more and more units, the cost gets spread out over more and more units, and so the cost gets closer and closer to marginal cost. Here, this natural monopoly, because it has downward sloping marginal cost, is greater than the average cost, and so that leads to positive profit. Okay? Suppose we break this firm up. Okay? If we break this firm up into two firms, and let's suppose they each supply half the same amount. Okay? Well, at that level, their average costs, if it's at the same price because the same total quantity, their average costs are now up here. Okay? That's above the price that they're charging. And so neither firm can stay in profit. That leads to negative profits. Okay? The argument here is that when firms have natural monopolies, it's most efficient for one firm to just do everything, to have the whole market to itself. And that's because by being as big as possible, it can reduce costs as much as possible. Now, this is still a situation where the market could be improved. We don't just have to accept this outcome. We could use a price ceiling, for example, to pull that price down to, say, here. And that would leave consumers better off. The firm would still make profit, wouldn't make as much profit, but it would still stay in business. We'd have to know the right level. But anyway, the point is, in this case, antitrust wouldn't necessarily work. Okay? And there are lots of other cases. This is all in the field of industrial organization. It can get very complicated, but in general, just like everything else, sometimes policy interventions improve welfare and sometimes they don't.